Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Say More podcast. I'm your host, Phoebe Hagen, and today we have a very exciting guest, and actually the first guest of the Say More podcast, which is super, super exciting. We have Valerie Ratelle. Hello, Val. I'm excited to have you.
Me too. First, I miss you, and two, I'm very honored to be honest. I love you guys' podcast, so that's very cool. I'm very happy.
Oh, thank you so much. How's your week been so far?
It's been good. It's been good. Just like getting ready to go for a little trip for myself. So I'm excited. It's been
Nice.
hectic, but yeah, it's been great. You?
Yeah. Well, I feel like we literally just spoke about this, but we're in the exact same boat. Like we're both traveling. Are you leaving tomorrow morning? Did you say?
Yeah, I think my flight's at 6 a.m. So I hate like the night before. I never sleep. I
Yes.
know.
Because you just get scared about potentially missing your flight. That's my fear.
Yeah, I would rather not sleep, get to the airport, and like sleep there.
Yeah, I feel like that's my ultimate fear is like if I have an early, like if your flight, you say your flight's at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Wake up
I've
at
had
4.
flights. Yeah. I feel like I've had flights that are like around that time, like 5, 6 o'clock. And you got to get there like a couple hours before. So, really, what is the point in sleeping? Because you've got to leave, make sure that you're not like just rushing when you get up and all that type of thing. I'd rather just like not
And it's
sleep.
like,
It's
how do
just
you
so
like
much
go to bed
easier.
at like 8 p.m., 8 p.m.? Like I won't be able to
Yeah.
like go to bed earlier.
Yeah.
So
And I also feel like I'm too excited. I'm like a little kid when I'm going away and traveling. So I'm like, I'm excited. I don't want to go to bed yet.
wait, what time are you leaving tonight?
I think so. My flight is actually so Max's flight is at 4 a.m. Mine's actually at 8 a.m. But we're just gonna go to the airport together.
Wait,
So like
what time is it for you now?
so right now it's 8:39 in the at night. And to be fair, when you said like, oh,
Mm.
I'm leaving tonight, I actually thought I was leaving tonight, but I realized that my flight is in the morning, like literally like an hour ago. So I was like, okay, well maybe I can like just have a little bit more chill time. But so Max has to go to the airport early, and I was like, well, I don't want to like stay here by myself, and I'm scared that I'm gonna like not wake up. So I might just go with him and then just check in and just sleep at a lounge or something.
Yeah.
It'd just be easier.
Where is he going?
We're both going to the UK, but obviously we didn't know if he was going to come to the UK or not at that time. So I already had a flight booked, and then he's just booked a different flight.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
same place, but just different times.
Different
I know,
flights.
I know. What's your like priority thing that you pack when traveling? Like, what's the one thing that you're like, I cannot
I
not pack with it?
It's funny because I was actually packing that yesterday, and like it's so annoying because I'm not competing. I'm just going for a couple of days. Right? I'm going Thursday to like Sunday, and like Sunday I'll be home by like I don't know, like 6, 7, 8. So like I'm trying to like chill a bit and like not being so like, but we're you know how we are. We're like so
Yeah.
used to like a routine and like making sure when we like compete, it's like okay, you need to make sure you still have like all your supplements. So I was like packing all my supplements Ziploc, and I'm like at first I was like I'll just bring the what I need the most, like gluta, like just like digestion stuff, and like maybe Vita. Then I'm like packing all my supplements in Ziploc like usual, like. But yeah, so like that, and like usually um food I'll still like bring like
Yeah.
my protein like chicken and like steak. I just freeze it and like maybe a bit of rice so I know I can still have my protein, not having to like
Go all over the place trying to find
yeah,
stuff and all that type
just
of
there,
thing.
and then I can have rice cakes, like make it easy as possible. Yeah, I try to like be chill, but I cannot.
I feel like that's just the bodybuilder in us. Like that will never leave now. Like I feel like one thing Max always complains to me about is always like try and pack light, and I'm like I physically can't. Like it's
I know.
impossible at this point. Like I can't. Gym
Well, we
outfits is
need
always
the
the one
most.
thing. The gym outfits is always the one thing I overpack on.
Yeah.
Always. I'm like, what happens if it's like sunny and like I want to wear this cute shorts and crop top and blah blah blah? What happens if it's too cold? I need a jumper and leggings, but I need 5 pairs.
Me, it's like even like packing gym clothes. It was like, okay, like what if I do cardio? And I'm stressed because I know it's fucking hot there. So now I'm like,
Yes.
okay,
Oh my
cardio.
god.
It's like I need like double the outfit. But then I'm like, chill. Like it's fine if you don't do cardio for a couple of days. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm like, I'm like, Val, chills.
That's me as well. That's so me as well. Like cardio outfits, then gym outfit, and then potentially like I don't sleep in gym wear, but like I have like big baggy t-shirts that
Oh
I'll
yeah,
wear to the gym, but also use as like a pajama top sometimes. So I'm like, I need pajama top, I need a gym top. Like
oh
it's
yeah.
just too much.
Last year
I
when I went
overthink.
to Miami, with my friend who went for a week, so I had like a bunch of like gym outfit, but like I didn't like brought like enough oversized t-shirt.
Mm.
So like the whole week I slept in the same. We were laughing the whole week. I slept. I mean, we were just fine, but like because we were like at the hotel, like often every time we go back to the room, we put the oversized shirt, and like it was like a white t-shirt. And the whole week I wore the same one, and then I was like, okay, I need to wear something else.
You're
But
like,
yeah,
I can't reuse this outfit anymore. Like I've reused it enough. Let's try and find something else now at this
oh
point.
yeah,
That's hilarious. That's so funny. Well, it was nice like having a little catch up to start off with.
I know.
So tell us about your story, your journey. For anyone that's hearing that is new to who you are, just you in general. What is it? When did you firstly start competing or and in general just get into bodybuilding?
So since I'm like really really young, like 5 years old, my mom brought me into like gymnastics. So I have a background of like gymnastic. I mean, I've always been an athlete, so I think for me, I was just like meant to be an athlete. I love sports. I did like so many sports through like just the years. Like I did competitive gymnastics for like about like 10 years. I did like a bit of like dance, a bit of soccer for fun. Then I did volleyball in a team for like a few years in high school, and then when I left high school, I went to college. That like we can like have college us in Quebec. I'm from Quebec, so I'm French. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, my accent. Some people think I'm Russian, actually.
Th- to be
It's funny.
fair, I've someone asked me like, "Are you Russian?" before. I think just like a follower randomly because you're like quite blonde, like you're blonde and like you're sometimes like your hair is like nicely like a bright blonde. And I'm not saying that all Russians are like blonde and whatnot, but it fits the criteria like very well. But yeah, that's actually funny that you said that.
Yeah, a couple of people said that. But yeah, so like when like when I went to college, there was not like really any sports for me to do. So I just like started like I had like my license at that time, so I could like drive to the gym. So I started like slowly. Obviously, at first it was like starting to gym. You don't know what to do. You're just wanting to like lose weight. I was actually like running a lot because like through elementary school and like high school, I was like cross country, and I was always good. Like I was always um like winning cross country. So I started to like run a lot more. So I would do like 10K for like a couple of times a week just for fun. I just
That's
like loved it.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's good though. That's good that you were
Yeah.
into like to sports and stuff like that so early on.
Yeah, I just like I love like the athletic part of like those sports, like especially like gymnastic, right? So I started like training, and then I went to like see a coach, and I was just like, oh, I just want to have abs, and like so he made me a diet, and then that's this coach can like introduce me to it. It was like 20, I would say 20, a bit like 2014, I think. So I was like 17, and then he was like, oh, you should do like a show, like you should do a bikini show. And like, bikini show, what is that? Was so like not known at that time. So he prepped me for like a competition, and then I was still living at my parents. And I remember like 4 weeks out, I was posing, and we both look at myself. Well, I wasn't like obviously conditioned enough either, because back in the days and like a first show, yeah, just so
Conditioning
you
isn't heard of. I feel like back in the day, like between the years of like 2000 and like 14 to like at least 17, it was like it's not conditioning. It's like slight like
it was
definition, but
different. It's
not
like there wasn't
yeah,
as not as much knowledge too. So like
no.
now, first show people get like in a very good place most of the time. But it was just funny. But like we look at myself, we're like, You're not bikini." Like I just like I'm such like broad shoulders, right? So it just doesn't fit bikini. So we switched for figure, and like that, I was like working a like little restaurant back then, and like I would do everything myself. Like I would like prep the bread. I would like do the dessert. I was the waitress too. So that night I was so discouraged. I'm like, I'm not gonna like learn like a new whole posing in like 4 weeks and like put on more like muscle and stuff. So I just started eating like M&M's, bread and stuff, and then my coach ended up like knowing
Isn't
about
you 4 weeks out?
it. And then the owner of the gym, he also like was like helping me like with the coach, and he was like, put that down, like you're going back in prep, you're not quitting. He's like, go take a cold shower, like, because I don't know, apparently like back in days you think it's gonna like burn more like fat,
Oh
right?
my god, that's crazy.
So and I ended up like doing figure for my first show, and then after that it was really hard for my parents because they didn't like it. I was like 17. It's like they saw me like very like not having any friends. Like all I would do is like go to the gym and stuff. So it was a
Yeah.
hard time for my parents to kind of like be okay with, and like just with like the drugs aspect and stuff. They were just like scared, I guess. And then they came to see my
Mhm.
first show and they see like a woman's physique, and my dad just like freaking out, right?
Yeah. Oh my
So
god.
it is hard to see like your little girl like going through, and then you're like, okay, like
Changes.
yeah, what does she want with that? You know what I mean? So and if like couple years after, I kept like training and just eating and just a couple of years after I was like 21 and I didn't live there anymore. So I was like, okay, well, that's my choice. I just got back into it. And so it was 2018 to like now, um, competed for the last 10 years, pretty much nonstop.
Wow.
And I won my pro
That's
card 2 years, 3 years after like doing like national and like trying to get my pro card. And then just went up from there. So
That's so
it's
amazing.
like,
That's so cool. Tell me a little bit more about your parents and stuff. Obviously, when they kind of started to see you kind of getting into it, because I feel my dad was the same where he was like, what is this that you're doing? Like I think it's a very unheard of sport to kind of get into, and especially visually, it's very different to like you think of a sport and you think, okay, it's like a skill. Most of the time, a lot of people always say that, but bodybuilding is just very different because it's all visual. So, how did you kind of get around that? Especially, I didn't even realize that you were 17 when you did your first bodybuilding show. That's crazy. That's
yeah.
super young as well. So, I can understand why they felt like that. But how did you obviously at that time kind of go about navigating it?
It was rough at first. Like when I came back from my first show, I remember I would like remember like it was yesterday. Like it was really rough. Like I would like, sorry dad, but I would see my dad like cry because obviously my dad doesn't cry often, and like has like
No.
generation like their like mindset of like my parents like time. It's like, well, a guy shouldn't cry, and like, you know what I mean. So like
Yeah.
it was really hard to see my parents go through that. But I was so angry at the time. The day after my show, they were like, you're not gonna go do that again. You said it was just one time. So like I was like resenting them a lot, and they were like, you're gonna
Yeah.
teach them and stuff. So it took like I went to like my brother's house for a couple of days, and like it kind of came calm down, and I think we kind of like brushed it off. And at first I was just like, I think I just had a chat with them, and I was like, listen, like it's fine, like I'll just like ball. I'm gonna keep training there, like that's what I love to do.
Yeah.
And then I think I just like we kind of like didn't talk about it for like a couple of years, and then I moved with one of my friend, and I moved with like an ex
Mhm.
at the time, and I just kept like training, but I didn't go back into like competing. And then when went back into competing, they weren't crazy happy about it, but at the same time I was older, and I think it's
Mhm.
just like it was just like like through the years making them understand um that like I think it's like communication is very big. Like if
Yeah.
you're young, you're into competing, it's your first show, your parents are not, talk to them about it. Talk to them where you see yourself, what's your goal. Like don't just like show them, I don't know, the Olympia, and they see like women's bodybuilding and they get scared. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you're like, for me it was like, no, like if I tell them I want to be healthy and my health, but I never said that at the beginning because I was so young. So it was just like, no, I want to do that. And it's like I never like can like you need to, how do you say that? Like make them feel um like at ease a bit.
Explain.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
okay, like I want to like stay feminine. Obviously, my health's gonna be like always, and I can like make them learn about the sports. And I think for
Yeah.
me, through the years that I was doing it, and I was getting like I got my pro card. They saw me like reach things that like I was wanting to like achieve, and like also
Mhm.
like moving to Toronto and like getting more like into like gaining like clients from it, gaining like now it's like make turning it around that like it's also not just competing, but like it's also getting like a part of like my job, and then I can like make money from it, and then I'm like, you know what I mean? So, and like seeing me through the year compete, and like I'm still like very feminine, I'm still like taking care of my health. I think that that can like help them be like more okay
Understand.
with it and understanding. And like the more I would do it, the more I would explain the depth of like the sports, and like, so yeah,
I
it can
think
take
as
time.
well. Yeah, I think as well, like as the years go on, I think you kind of like one, you understand the sport more yourself. So then you do feel
Oh
like you
yeah.
can open up to your parents more because I feel like, again, you're very closed off at the beginning. Like I was very closed off at the beginning. And then as time goes on, like you said, it started to be more of your life and become like more of your lifestyle. And they see like your happiness like come
Mhm.
from it so much more. They then are like, oh, okay, she's actually like thriving. She's doing good. Like it's fine. Like it's just me. The thing is, and I understand why they're concerned as well. Like I understand because it's a new thing that you're just getting into and they have no clue about it.
Mhm.
It's like you going out for like to like a party or someone's house and then not knowing who they are and just hearing maybe bad things about that person because again bodybuilding doesn't have the best reputation either from their
Yeah.
side of things, so it's like they just expect the worst. And that's what my dad thinks, and I can probably like think that your parents probably did the same. So but that's really good to hear that you kind of like just were like, right, let's
Mhm.
communicate, let's kind of understand and let's find kind of a meet the middle thing. Obviously they weren't happy, but it's they didn't ruin your relationship like with you because over like this one thing, because they saw it made you happy, which I think is really good. So that's really nice because I've heard
Yeah.
some, stories before where people haven't kind of had that support from parents and stuff because they
Yeah.
can't see past it, which is always hard. But like we said, I think having communication is super important with even like not just parents, but like partners, like people that don't understand the sport, friends, all that type of
Yeah.
thing. It's so different for someone. Like when I speak to my people, my friends that aren't into bodybuilding, they're like, how do you even like track food? How do you even like get up and do cardio at 7 a.m.? And I'm like, I just do. Like, it's just something
Yeah.
I do. Like, and they're like, you're crazy. So communication is so important for anyone that needs to understand bodybuilding. I think that's super important.
Yeah. And
Um,
at first it was hard.
so
Like the first couple of show I did, like, oh my gosh, they would send me like, she would my mom would send me a card every show I would do, and she would be like, oh, like good luck even though we're not like fully supportive, and I'm like, why would you even put that? It
I
can like, it's
know.
like rubbing the wrong way, right? But at least she was
Yeah.
helpful enough to like being like excited for me. But then through the years that like they've like can learn like like how much I like was like loving it, and like how like it wasn't as like scary for them. They started like coming around a little bit more, and then they came to see like my first pro show because they knew like it meant a lot for me, and then they came to
Hmm.
see my Olympia. So that was like very like cool moment to like share with them. um but it made us grow a lot, and I can talk about it like a bit more later with like
Hmm.
the decision that I made.
Yeah.
um but it's like sometimes like there's things that your parents see or like tells you that you don't want to hear, as like when you get into bodybuilding or competitor. It's the same thing with anything, right? It's like if you're young and like you want to have sex, like whatever, and they're like,
Yeah.
be careful, don't be pregnant, then you're like, you're fine, like, but it's like
Yeah.
those things they think about it because they're older. So for me, like even like hormone, they were like, take care of your health. I'm like, it's fine, like, but then you're like, now you're getting older, you're wanting other things. Oh, maybe I want kids one day. Okay, well, I'm glad that like I didn't fuck up my
Yeah.
hormones and everything, because if I want kids now, it would have been too late. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
kind of like seeing their side too.
Yeah, they do. The thing is, everything they do is because they care. Like, it's not like, oh my God, I don't want you to do this thing and it's a control thing. And I think when we are younger, we do think that sometimes because we're like, we're adults. I can do what I want. I'm 17 and I can do what I want, all that type of stuff. But then you realize when you get older, you're like, oh, they're literally trying to protect us and they're just literally caring for us.
Yeah,
That's all it comes down to. And they just want the best for you. That's it.
yeah.
So
Like I don't
I
know for
think,
you, like me, when I started bodybuilding, I was like, I'm gonna do that my whole life. I was seeing myself at like 80 years old on stage.
yeah,
So I don't
you
know
just
if that's
don't
the same
think
for
of it
you.
like that. You just don't think like in when you start, it's like I'm gonna be doing this. Like back in the day, it was like I'm gonna be doing this forever. I'm gonna be doing this when I'm like 60. I'm gonna keep going, can't wait. And I'm like now I'm like Totally different story. Totally
Yeah.
different story. So, but okay, so obviously, fast forward. When did you win your pro card? So you said it was 2, 3 years ago, right?
So I did my first national in 2019.
Hmm.
I got first, and then I did Olympia amateur. Oh my god, what can I say that?
Amateur.
Amateur Olympia, whatever.
Amateur.
In 2020, got second place, and then 2021 ended up like winning my pro card. And then I did my first pro show in 2021 because there was
Mhm.
Toronto a couple of weeks after. So I was, because it was in December at that time, like that year, because of COVID and everything. Um, so I did Toronto, and I was like, let me just get up there, like, and just see where I stand. And then I did Toronto the next year with Vancouver. So like my first like real years as a pro, I got like third at Toronto, and then I won Vancouver, which was like crazy. It was just like everything was like. So I did my first Olympia the first year, like after winning
That's
my pro card.
crazy.
So it
That's
was pretty
so
cool.
cool. That's so cool. And I mean, what was that experience? Because again, like again, the way that I say the way that a pro journey works, it's not the way a pro journey works. Everyone's pro journey or journey in general to the Olympia is so different. But
Yeah,
obviously, my experience towards yours is so different. Where it took me 4 years to get my Olympia qualification, it took you a year or
yeah,
just under a
yeah.
year.
Under a
How
year,
did
yeah.
you feel, kind of going into that success like so quickly? Do you know what I mean? Like you got your pro card pretty much then a year later you got qualified almost immediately and going straight into the Olympia. So how did you kind of feel with that, all of like that kind of sudden like change? Did you feel like, oh my god, this is crazy, like this is, did it feel too quickly? Did you feel like, what did you feel like when that kind of happened, I guess?
I mean, it was pretty cool. Like back then, it's like I think I believe in myself more in a way that like I had more potential to like get to Olympia. Um, I don't know. It was just like it was really cool. Like I was in disbelief, but at the same time, I'm very like not hard on myself, but like when I won Vancouver, I was like obviously like I was like so happy, and like I couldn't. And like for me, like the Olympia was like so far ahead. Like
Yeah,
I just didn't even think I would it would be like I would get to Olympia so quick, right? So like it was pretty cool, but at the same time when I won Vancouver, I was just like kind of like degrading myself. I was just like, oh, like it's an easy show though, like that's why I won. You know
yeah,
what I mean? So it's like, which yeah, it's not a US show. US show are like competitive, like very competitive, but there was still like girls that competed the week before, like at US show that was like really good that I beat, or like other like girls that like I think that, I don't. There wasn't any Olympian, but there was girl that like did like the um top five at like pro shows in the US weeks before, or like so. I mean, it was pretty cool, and then it was
yeah.
just like that year for me was just like skyrocketing. It was just like everything like
One
was
after the other.
yeah.
That's cool. I think that's really cool. Like, and I love that you. I'm glad. I mean, I say I'm glad you had that kind of feeling of like disbelief because you kind of proved yourself like wrong. Obviously, I know that we
Mhm.
probably always have this kind of like feeling of disbelief like before shows, and then we prove ourselves wrong. It feels really good. But I've definitely been in that situation as well, where it's been like post show. I've done obviously the show, and then you kind of like degrade yourself or push yourself down and like have those doubts, and you're like, oh, like this is the reason, and you kind of make up those reasons. But I hope you know that obviously, like, the way that obviously how it works, how it's on the day. It's not a case of like, if you are the best on the day, you're the best on the day, and that's how it works. And I feel like that's sometimes really hard to wrap your head around, where you're like, oh, I just beat like these people, and it doesn't actually start to process until like further on down the line sometimes. Like I've always felt like that, maybe like weeks or even months after like having either a big win or like something like that. It'd be like, oh my god, I actually did that. But in the moment you're like, I yeah, this is a fluke, this
I don't
isn't
think I
real.
realized I qualified until I had like the suit on, like the tracksuit.
Really?
Like
Oh,
yeah,
well, at
oh yeah.
Olympia.
Oh yeah, I think like the moment that I was like, oh my god, like I'm an Olympian, like I made it. It's like when I I went to the athlete meeting and I put the tracksuit in like when I went to like the meet and greet. And I was like, oh, that's pretty sick.
Yeah. To be fair, that's what I felt like as well. Like when you get your, you know, your number, you get when you go into the room for the check-in and they say like, "Hey, you're at Mr. Olympia." I was like, "Oh my God, this is real. This is actually real. This is real." Oh, that's cool. I mean, that's good that you had that kind of realization of like uplifting and you felt good about it. I think that's all really good. And it is tough when you kind of get to this point of like the sport where you are like, okay, I'm a little fish in this huge pond now, and like this is weird, but I'm gonna build up. Let's build it
Yeah.
up. Let's build it up. Um so obviously now fast forwarding to now. So that's kind of like your journey, you know, of how you got into bodybuilding, where you've come, successes, all that type of thing. So currently, obviously, you had a huge announcement like recently that you did, which obviously you can just give us a quick recap on. So, what are you currently doing at the moment?
So I mean, I'll like backpedal a little bit. I don't know if you can say that, but I'll
No, no,
like
you're
so
good. You're good.
2022 was the Olympia like around like November, I think, or
Hmm.
December that year. And then January, like kind of like everything, I was like planning on competing, but just later on that year, just to give myself a little bit of a rest. And then there were just like so many things in my life at that moment that can like just a tough time, like a bunch of things happened. So I got like very in a bad place. By like before I started prep by like before June, I gained like quite a like no, I gained a little bit of weight, but then I started back prep and then prep was just not going in a
The way
good
you
way. Like
wanted.
my body was responding, but like I could tell it was like very resistant. But like I was also in a place I would get up every day and I would be like, so if you've been on prep, you know how it is. It's like you wake up and you're like ready to suffer. You're like you're excited for it. You're like, okay, like 2 hours of cardio, let's go.
Let's
Like you don't
go.
care.
Yeah.
I mean, you're like calories get dropped. You're like, okay, I'm excited to get more in condition and see more lines. And then I would just wake up every day being like, I don't want to suffer. Like I just couldn't get up of bed. I think looking back, it was a bit of like a small like depression.
Mm,
So that year, like without like it wasn't like it's like out of my control. Like I decided to like take a step back and like take the year completely off.
hmm.
And I can like work on because I went to do like blood work obviously before like I started competing, and there was things with like my kidney and liver, just like and just like hormones imbalances. So I went to see a doctor, and it's expensive because she was like private. So I was like, either like I do both like together and like try, but it's hard to try to like, get your hormones at the same time of like competing. So I'm like, listen,
It's like fighting fire with fire. It's hard to
yeah,
do sometimes at the same time. Like
yeah. I'm
some
like,
people
I'm gonna
can, but
feel
it's
like
not always
need
okay.
both to like what like clashing. So I was like, okay, let me take the year to like. It was scary because I was like, okay, people know me for like competing. So I decided to like take a year off. People like were super supportive, which I'm actually like very thankful for. Like you know how it is, like how like people like support you no matter what. So
Hmm.
it was like refreshing, but like after that, like it just I would like relationship with food was really bad, and like rebalancing my hormone like also probably like played a role into like me craving more, like wanting to eat all the time or gaining more weight.
Hmm.
So I gained a lot of weight. I went to Olympia. I was like very uncomfortable. Like it was in Florida. I was like, always in like big clothes, like my face. It's just like it wasn't myself. And then
Yeah.
this year, beginning of this year, I prepped for New York, and I didn't get into like the condition I wanted to, but I think I needed that show. First I wanted to do a show in the US because I always wanted to, and I was like, I want to go to a big stage, I want to compete in the US. So it was just like more like personal, but it wasn't like the condition I wished for, but like I think I needed that to just push myself to be back in the place that like I feel like myself again. And then had a couple weeks off and I felt really good, like I re-control like with like food and stuff. I would go out to restaurant, like having fun, like enjoying summer a little bit before starting prep. Again, I was supposed to do San Antonio and Arizona. And then I was in prep 5 weeks out. So not like 6 weeks ago, I would say. And then I was just like training with Dorian, and I was just like, we we got into a conversation because of like just some of the figure that was competing, and like I knew
Hmm.
like one of the figure that was competing supposedly at Arizona Pro with me, and I was like
Yeah.
crazy physique. I mean, I admire her physique so much, and like she trains crazy hard, but like I was like, holy shit, like she's woman's physique. And like funny enough though, like she competed in Jim Mannion or Tyler told her that she needs to go like women's physique. You know what
What,
I mean?
recently?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So like, but like for me, I was like, if that's figure, I'm not willing to push my body there. So we started like talking. He's like, well, like, he's like, what do you want from it? Do you want to be a top Olympian? Like, do you want to like put all your energy into that? Or like, he's like, you've been like successful, like very young, and like you got your pro car, you won a pro show, you went to Olympia, like you've done all that. But I think for me, it was like because the year before it was like I wanted to like compete again and like requalify and prove that I could do it again, which not just luck because like I said, Vancouver, I didn't feel like it was like fully, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think it was just like more like proving myself that I can qualify again. I'm like, I have what it takes, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, is that what I want? Like right now, I think I got like thinking. I was just talking to him, and like I was just like, well, I want to travel. When am I going to travel for fun? Because we're always just traveling for like competing, and then
Yeah.
other than that, you're home. I mean, you're good at that though. You're good to like be able to do both, which like, I admire. I don't, couldn't do it. But like I
I
love
know.
being
I don't know.
home.
I don't know how I do it either, honestly. I'm literally like, it's just second nature for me now.
It's crazy. It's like giving me anxiety. But yeah, so and then I was like, okay, like when am I gonna meet someone? Like I'm always home. I think I got the realization. I'm like every weekend I would be like in the summer, I would see people at the beach or do something or like, and then I would be in my bed at like 4 p.m., which is like normal at some point when you're in prep and it's fine. But I think I just got to a point it's like it gets very like lonely. So like it's
Yeah.
like when am I gonna meet someone or like start building something with someone? Like I'm getting older, like so I think it was like a lot of things that can like added up. Um, so I was like, okay, like let me just put that chapter. So I decided to like take a step away from like competing. And like I'm not saying never, but I think for me it's like I don't want to be like putting a timeline of like, okay, 2 years, because now you always have that timeline, right? So it's like kind of like own learning of like, okay, I have so many more like weeks before I start prep again, or like, and like your brain's always like that, but now it's like no, like it now it's like it's life,
Yeah.
like
The
freedom if I want
goal, that's good. The goal was to not actually have like a timeline to anything physique wise or competing wise. It's like if one year I feel like I want to compete, let's do it. Like
to. Yeah,
if I don't, if that never comes, that's my journey over and that's okay.
yeah,
And you're like at peace with that.
yeah,
And I love that. I love that you had the conversation with Dorian, which is obviously your coach, which is really cool because I think a lot of people probably they don't get scared to talk to their coaches, but I think they probably are worried, especially being that far away. Obviously, coaches are like could be like, you've only got 5 weeks, so just keep pushing or whatever. He really considered your feelings and what you actually wanted to do. Like he asked, obviously, what do you
yeah.
want to do? Like what do you want from it? And
Hmm.
considered that versus it being like, no, you have to finish this, then figure it out. Because realistically, if you push for that 5 weeks, like, do you think you would have not been worse off, but do you think mentally it would have been harder to dig you out of that hole after? Do you think?
I think so. I don't think I would be mentally in the place I am now. And like, I mean, you're
Yeah.
making a good point. Like, I feel a lot of people would just be like pushed through. And I think a couple people that I talked to was expecting me to like keep prepping for finish that show. For me, I'm like, no, I'm done now.
Yeah, I'm done.
What
Yeah.
like for me was like at this point was like, what's worth to like keep pushing for 5 weeks if I already know my heart is not there anymore. There's no really point
Hmm.
to like put money into that. Might as well just like I don't want to resent it. I think that was my biggest thing. And like I was
Hmm.
happy to like well for me I'm lucky that like I've built like that friendship with Duran. So like he's my coach, but he's also one of my best friends. So like I
Hmm.
know when I go to him and like I have a conversation, he's always gonna be honest. And like the fact that he was like he's always like no matter what you decide. And I think also just giving his opinion and like you get in your head because now I was like, okay, well, easy like telling me that because he doesn't think I have like what it takes anymore. Like, do I like? And I'm like, no, like it's just.
Don't overthink
And
it.
I know
It's
it's in
just
prep. I know
literally,
it's for me.
yeah.
It's like what, and he sees it on. Then like I think the biggest thing is like, I would never cheat on my diet, and like that last prep, it's like the first week, and I'm like fine saying that now because it's like it just makes sense of like why I made that decision. But like the first week I got back into prep, that weekend I had some food like I cheat on my diet. I had some food and I wasn't supposed to, but like because I was like, oh, it felt great to be off and have like a free meal every weekend, and I'm like,
And that's where you think
crap,
like
like this is not normal.
you detach, like you've detached. That's probably like that first indication. Like now, like you said, now you look back and you're like, I would
Mhm.
never do that before. So why am I doing that now? And it's like little things start to kind of like potentially drip off and be like, it's not like you don't care, but it's not right now. I'm not in it. Headspace,
Yeah,
I'm not in it. And you need to be like, I think people think that, oh, perhaps just dieting and like doing cardio and training. You're like, no, it's like a whole different level of
yeah,
mindset. Like you
it's
have
at
to be
a
in
higher
it.
level.
Exactly. It's so much hard. I say it's so much harder, but it adds more pressure. You have to think about things more mentally, and it's a lot. So I think that's really good that you can reflect on that now and be like, that makes sense now. And I think it's good that you've left those 5 weeks and at least you're now in
Mhm.
a really good position. You look insane right now. Like you've got that
Thank
really
you.
nice, full look to you, in that kind of mode in where you're in prep, where you're getting that condition, but you've got the fullness still. So it's not like you're
Oh yeah,
depleted and like dying. That's what you've got, and you have the energy behind you as well. So it looks really nice, and I love that you're like in a really really good place with yourself right now, which is cool.
thank you. No,
It's
it
cool.
was like very like freeing, and I think like the biggest thing was like I think I was in a place when I made that decision, I was very at peace. And like I feel like in the past I would have been scared to be like, oh, did I made like a wrong choice and like can like regret it? And it wasn't that. So it felt very, very good to be at that place.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like even like I mean, obviously it's like it's still like a journey and challenge because I need to navigate and because I've always had such a bad relationship with food in off season, like it's obviously now it's kind of like I'm learning a lot of things and trying like to like retrain my brain differently. Um
Hmm.
and like it's a little bit like up and down here and there and like
Yeah.
but yeah, just like I love how I look and like again like in prep you look very very good for like the last couple weeks either you're real lean or at the beginning like you said when you're like a bit fuller but like lean but like there's a lot of time you don't look good which now I'm like I get to look good all the time
All the
before
time. This is great, and I'm
I'm
eating
physically
loads.
depleted now I'm like oh my god there's like some training I'm like I'm so pumped I can't even believe it but because I
Yeah.
would push myself so like to like lose weight, so I was always like training like very depleted.
Yeah.
No, it's
So
fun.
it's
It's like
it's improved everything, and I love that. So that's really cool to hear, like that whole journey, because I've never actually like asked you fully about that, to be fair. So that's cool to hear it on my side. But the two main questions that I think both that I want to ask you, which a lot of people from the audience have obviously asked and stuff as well. First one being about binge eating and kind of navigating it. So I know you've mentioned before that you've kind of had, obviously you just mentioned now, obviously like a little
mhm,
bit of a bad relationship with food
yeah.
previously beforehand, in off season, and I think a lot of people could probably relate to that as well and how to navigate that. So like, if you don't mind, obviously, like kind of just taking us through your journey just with your relationship with food from the beginning, I guess, in terms of like how it kind of started and how you feel it's gotten better now, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
um
I think like I mean I would love I feel like I need to go like I would have to go deeper in like my childhood and stuff and I always wanted to go see a therapist. I just want to for me I want to make sure I find a good one, but I think it would be good
yeah.
just to like kind of like understand a bit more where that's coming from because I feel like it's coming from like either childhood or like something else.
Mm.
Um but I mean, I've always been like athletic, but I've always been like a foodie as well. And then I think obviously like after first show, like like I mean I was young and I would like after that like I gained a lot of weight. I'm an emotional eater, so like
I
if
feel
I'm
like
bored, I'm like
I feel
bad.
like everyone's first show though is like, you just go like, because you've kind of got to the end, everyone's literally like, right, I'm so excited for donuts, I'm so excited for this, I'm so excited. Like you just obsess over it more. Do you feel like that's what you were kind of at the first beginning?
The first year after like my first show, like me and like when, like the my old friend that like did the first show with me, it was bad. We would like get like food like all the time, or like we would do like those like you know those Quest bar like I was like sleeping over
Hmm.
at our place, and I think we almost ate like a box of 12 in one night. we just
Oh
like
my
couldn't stop. And then one time we're
yeah.
like training, we're like at the beginning of a training, and we're like pizza fine. We left the gym, we went to eat, and it's just like that, like
Yeah.
craziness about food. But I mean, obviously, like it got better every year. But I think like last year was just a lot with like my hormones and like a lot of like things going through. But other than that, like I feel like every off season I got better, to
Mhm.
like control and like getting like understanding more too. Like I think the beginning though, like I would, when I would get off season, I would be so like feeling like I need to be so strict on my plan. Like it would feel like if I want to change like rice for like rice cake, I was cheating on my diet, or like it wasn't
Okay.
working as much. You know what I mean? Or like now it's like I know it doesn't matter, like as long as it digests well and stuff. So now I'm like I'm able to give myself a bit more freedom in terms
Mhm.
of like food variety. It's instead of like being like no, it needs to be exactly what's on my plan, or I'm not gonna get as much progress.
Yeah.
So I think that helped a lot. But I think the biggest thing, like I think it removing that timeline of like, okay, I only have like 3 cheats left until I start prep again, or like, oh, like you know what I mean, or like that helped a lot because now I'm like, okay, like I'm like I have any time, like so
Mhm.
if I'm craving like 3 different things, I have time to get those out of the way. Like I just it doesn't
Mhm.
matter, you know what I mean? So obviously it's hard when you compete because you do have those timeline. Um, but I think like it's easier when you have like shows like close by. If you have just like 5 weeks in between, you know you
Mhm.
need to stay in a good condition because you're gonna start prep again soon. So you don't want to screw
Yeah.
that over. I think it's like when it's like longer period of time,
Mhm.
it is hard. But like the biggest thing for me like this year that I've like I'm still learning though, like it's just not being like so scared of food.
Mhm.
And like even like past like of season, if I would have a cheat and like gain, even if it was 5 pounds, I gain often 5 pounds after a cheat. Can be water retention, anything.
Mhm.
Um, but I would literally cut my carbs and my food the first like at least like 2 days, and try to like go on the
Yeah.
stairs or like doing like crazy cardio. Like doesn't and I wouldn't do like 2 hours cardio, but I would try to make it more intense or go for a walk after, just to like get my weight back. But now it's like you're giving your body so much food, and then you're like restraining it so much. So you go too extreme, you're putting so much stress on your body instead of being like, I've given you a lot of food. I gained 5 pounds, fine. I'm keeping my diet the same. So at least your body's not like they're like, oh no, okay, she's still giving me food. We can we can chill. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, that's what I'm like learning now. It's like no matter what I eat the day before, even if I screw up and I ate for like 2 nights in a row, which I try not to do because it's like stacking. It's it's not the best, but even if I do that, I go back on my diet. So like, and my body's been like responding well, so much less stress on my body, and like I'm just trying to like not be like so scared of food,
Mhm.
and just like because I'm trying to also like now I can have a bit more like fun with my training. I can like train whatever I want, or if I want to go running, or if I want to try to do other things. Well, I'm like I know I'm gonna have to like be like have energy
For
to
those
like
things.
do that. So like now I'm like okay, and like also like trying to be athletic. Try to run if you're like I'm like 30 pounds over. That's gonna be
It's
hard.
hard.
So for me to like I know myself to be able to like have fun and do other things and like trying other things. I need to stay in a very good place and stay athletic, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's like a lot of things that like is helping
Has
me,
helped.
but at the end of the day, it's still you need to be disciplined, right?
Yeah. It's about learning what is also best for you as well, because I think from what it sounds like, you sound like you're really good, happy place of like you said before, you used to restrict a lot. And if you had like, a cheat and then you went up in weight, you do extra intense cardio or do extra to kind of get it off, which again puts your body in like more of a stressful place. So it's just going to crave more. So it's just this vicious circle. And
It's
I
also
think
create a negative like
headspace.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people kind of have had this feeling of, you've had something either post show or you've had, more food than you usually used to. You see your body change or you feel slightly more sluggish, you don't feel yourself, so you try and do something about it immediately, and I feel like that's the thing that makes it worse. I think depending on where you're at, like don't get me wrong, if you cheat on your diet in a prep and you're like a week out or 2 weeks out, I think it's a different story, obviously. But if you're like not in prep, you're in off season and you've had a few things that are off plan or whatever, and your weight's gone up, like you've experienced before, like you said, keep things the same and keep it nice and steady, because you trying to get your body down to what it was beforehand is going to make it so much worse,
Yeah.
because you're just going to be in that binge restrict constantly over and over again. And I think people don't realize they're in the cycle, like, until they are like, it's happened like multiple times. Like,
Oh yeah.
has there been a time where you feel, because I've had a few people that have kind of said this to me, and to be fair, I've gone through this myself as well, like when I was first competing and stuff, where you've had that time where you've eaten, you've obviously done that and you've done it so many times, and then you just realize you're like, I'm just in this awful circle now, and there's no consistency anymore. Have you ever had that before?
Oh, trust me, it's like the worst place to be, because like I would have a cheat, overdo it, then it's like I'm cutting my carbs and like fats or whatever for a couple of days. So now for a couple of days I'm not actually following my real diet. Then I'm getting back on my real diet maybe for 3 days, and then it's checking again. And then maybe if I maybe I like I got myself to a place that like I got myself placed to a weight that I wanted to like to have a good check-ins.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I lied because I've done that in the past. Like not in prep, never in prep, but off
No,
season,
but you'll be
I would like
surprised how many
couple
people
pounds on
do
my
it as
check-in.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would like lie a couple pounds on my check-in because I was like, oh well, I can still bring it back down after my check-in. But then I would cheat again because I would be starving. I would like go back into the so now I'm like again I'm going back to that circle of like couple of days I'm not following my diet. So now I'm really never following my diet other than 2 3 days a week, not even. So he's never able to like increase my calories. And now I need to go back into like deficit. So like now it's like I'm always like back on my diet for like the whole week, but also like he's able to like increase my calories. And I think one thing too, it's like if I'm like when you like cut your like you try to like work like do like getting back into a place like very like quickly, it's like well you need to give
Mm-hmm.
your body time too. Like it's not gonna change, you're not gonna get back to where you were in 2 days. But
Mm-hmm.
also like if you're cutting your calories, now you're like starving all the time. Now it's like okay, at least like even if my weight's a bit higher, like I'm going back on my like normal calories, I'm still having carbs every meal, I'm like satisfied. So now I don't want to cheat again. I
Yeah.
feel fine, you know what I mean? And I think a
Yeah.
big thing too is like making sure I'm not focusing on like how the food like tastes and like how it makes me feel. I mean, I love my meals. I always make like
Yeah.
my meals taste good. But I mean like food like chocolate or like candies or anything. But like or like a lot of like sugar-free stuff. I remove a lot of that because a lot of time of season, the worst would be like my stomach or like digestion. So now like anything, I want to make sure that like I feel good. I wake up, I'm not bloated. Like I don't have like digestion problem, and like that has been huge because now you're just making better choices and healthier choices.
Yeah. And it's so hard, because I think like I said before, and you've said as well, a lot of people just don't know how to navigate it, and they don't know how to get out that cycle, because it's just habit after habit after habit. So it's like that's your normal. But I love that you said that like you have to look at it as creating good, like healthy habits for yourself, because at the end of the day you can't continuously do that over and over again. Like it's just not a way of living. Like being on plan for 2 days, then restricting, or being on plan for 2 days, having something to eat, obviously going over plan, then like restricting even more, it's just not feasible. And like you said, it will create such a bad relationship with food for you. Do you feel like that created a bad relationship for food with you when you were binging, like for either your first show or like in between that at all?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think it's like also put you like mentally in a very bad place. Like I can't
Mm.
remember like how like mentally I would feel for a couple of days after like binging and like trying to like work through that like myself. It's like you always feel like you're fighting something and you're always like never like stable. It's like the
Hmm.
worst place to be. But like and now I'm also like pushing myself to like train and like more like sport bra. Like I would like the second I would start feeling like uncomfortable, I would put like oversized tee or like hoodie. And then you go to the gym, you don't see yourself, you're fine. So you come home, you're hungry, you eat. Now it's like if I go to the gym and I start feeling like, okay, my stomach's starting to feel a bit like not as tight. So now it's like it's in my mind. I just know I
Yeah.
want to wake up in a better place. I want to stay there. So now it's like encouraging me to like stay more on my plan. It's stupid, but like push yourself to like m- maybe maybe if like tighter clothes or like sport brand shorts.
Hmm.
um so at least you can like keep yourself accountable a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
It's
know
like
what
if
you
you
mean.
don't
I
have
know what you
mirror
mean.
like at your house and you never see yourself, you'll look at a mirror at some point, you're like, holy shit. But then if you see
Yeah.
yourself every day, you're like, okay, like
Yeah. It's like creating those habits because I've heard that before where a lot of people will kind of just avoid themselves and be like, oh, like you said, oversized T, don't look at myself, it's fine. But I love that you were like, no, I'm actually going to try and force myself to kind of like wear clothes, one, that I want to, because you probably don't want to be in an oversized tee all the time. Like, let's be honest. Like, no, I don't think no one wants to be in an oversized tee all the time. Like, we're bodybuilders. We work so hard for like this
oh
muscle
yeah,
and conditioning. We want to show it off. But
oh
I
yeah,
feel like when you're in that cycle, you don't feel worthy to probably like showcase it off, or you're worried about what people will say, or be like, oh, she's gained weight. Like, why does she look like that? And all that type of thing. And I think that's another thing that comes with all of it is like obviously it's not just the habits and the eating, but what other people think of you, especially in the sport. Not obviously I don't know about anything outside of the sport or anything like that at all, because that's not something I've experienced. But
yeah,
I think out like other people's opinions take a huge thing on when you're in prep versus when you're out of prep, like the
oh
difference
yeah.
of it, the size you are. And the thing is, most of the time, I honestly don't think people actually care. Like, don't no one cares. Like, if
No.
you're 20 pounds or 30 pounds up, as long as one you're happy and you're in a good place of where you want to be, it really doesn't matter. But I think we think people are like, oh, she's gotten big, or
I
she's,
mean, when I
you
went to
know,
Olympia last year was like hard because you go to a place that like everyone's in shape. It's bodybuilders. Everyone knows you for being
yeah,
competitor. And they're 50 pounds over, 50 pounds over the
yeah,
5'2" person. So I was like, oh man, like it was not a good feeling. But like I remember even like funny because I went to say hi to like Lauralie and I was like, she was just like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm whatever. Like I'm in a bad place.
yeah,
I'm just like I'm not." And she's like, "Just focus on yourself. You need that.
yeah,
Like it's okay." Like, and I was like, "Okay."
yeah,
Like you know what I mean? It's like people doesn't care. You care more. But like I think one thing too that helped me is like I feel a lot of time you're like trying to stay in shape and like keeping that like accountability not for yourself but for your coach. And for me, it was like, oh man, I need to make like Duran like proud. Like, I can't fuck up. I can't fuck up. And I'm like just putting my head. I can't fuck up. I can't fuck up. No, I'm gonna fuck up. Instead of being
yeah,
like, no, I'm staying accountable for myself because I want to feel good, and like that's gonna come to like I'll get a good check-ins and he's gonna be happy. But like I need to do that for myself first and stay in good shape for myself, not because I have a check-in on Saturday and I need to like make him proud. You know what
mm-hmm.
I mean?
Yeah, I love that you said that, because I 100% have felt that previously before. And it's not a nice feeling when you're chasing after something that you think someone want, like you need to make someone else proud and you're doing it for someone else versus yourself. Like, we
Yeah.
get into the sport because we want to better ourselves, and when we lose that side sometimes, it can be really dark because you just then don't want it, you're chasing it for someone else, and it's then hard to navigate and kind of like, okay, why do I actually like doing this now? Like, why I'm miserable, why am I doing this anymore? But I love that you literally said like, I need to figure out, like, that's the final piece of the puzzle. I feel like, to not be afraid to just literally do it for yourself and just be like, okay, if I don't feel comfortable doing what my coach has said, let's say something about it, and let like always be concerned about what you want to do, and like, don't be afraid to either have something to change if you're really not in a good headspace to do this thing or that thing or anything like that. I think that's really, really good that you said that. I love that.
Yeah. It's like the more
So,
communication you have, obviously. Like I have good communication with Duran. He knows me. He knows I love to snack. So he's like, let's just if you love to snack or whatever, let's just add more like calories in your like day to day. So you're
mhm.
removing yourself from that. Or like if you're hungry in your fourth meal, I had no carbs. The added carbs help me tremendously because I don't want to snack in between anymore. So it's just like
Yeah.
making sure your coach understands you too. But
Yeah.
How are you feeling though? I know you've been like
Yeah.
also
It's
like
it's
okay.
exciting. Like, I mean, I'm in a good place at the moment where I've kind of been in between of like intuitive eating to like tracking. So I think post show I was kind of a bit like I had a bit of an ick for kind of like wanting to stick to things. I don't know what it was where I was just like I was in a bad headspace post show for me this year.
What
And I
happened?
was
Like that
like
was after the Olympia, right?
after the Arnold's this year. So it was the Arnold's this year after the Arnold.
Oh,
I know everyone's always like the Olympiad. I was like, no, the Arnold's. I forgot
oh
that the
yeah.
Arnold's was even a thing this year. I know I was the same. But yeah, I feel like for me, I was kind of like, I'm exhausted from always having to kind of like always be on it, always be tracking, always be
Yeah.
having my meals. And that's something I was just really tired of. So when I got a new coach, we were kind of like, right, let's strip that all back. Let's just go with intuitive eating and kind of obviously let's try and go with a few
Wait,
things.
did I miss a part? Did you get a new coach?
Yes, I did.
Did you
I
announce
did.
it?
No, I haven't, but I will after this podcast. I'll tell
Surprise!
you who. Yeah, after the podcast, I'll tell you who it is. I have been
Cool.
like dangling it in front of people for ages. I'm like, my coach, and everyone's like, who is it? And I'm like, I'm not telling you yet.
Oh,
Just give me time. It being a secret, right? So,
yeah.
but yeah, so
So
yeah, got
funny.
a new coach, and we
Okay.
kind of just said like, right, let's find the thing for you that works. And intuitive eating worked for a while. And then I came back to Dubai. I was kind of like, right, let's get back on my tracking game. And then recently I was kind of like, I've kind of got that weird ick for it again, where I'm just like, I just don't want to keep always being on it like over and over. And we were like, well, intuitive eating works. So why don't we
Yeah.
just go back to that? It's not like intuitive eating. I think people hear that word and they're like, oh, she wants pizza for breakfast and donuts for, lunch. Intuitive eating is literally, I just don't want to weigh out my food all the time. I don't want to always constantly be thinking about numbers, calories, all that type of thing. We obviously said, right, let's make obviously a base and make sure that protein's priority, obviously, but and then obviously prioritize like fiber and all that type of thing. And you know how it
Yeah.
works with carbs and fats, just
Yeah. No, I
prioritize those
know
around
that.
where you want. Exactly. Um, so
It's more like you're
it's
still having your 4 or 5 meals a day with protein and carbs and like
yeah,
healthy stuff, but you're more like, okay, like if I'm going somewhere, I don't have to bring 3 Tupperware.
it's just free. It's just more peaceful for me at the moment where I'm just like, I just don't want to have to think about numbers. For me, I
Yeah.
was very much like, I think at the end, I was so burnt out and tired with always thinking about numbers. I think I was just like, I just want a break from it. And I think a lot of people related to me when I kind of started to saying that. And I think obviously on the topic of binge eating, I think a lot of people do then get scared about or that's potentially why sometimes people do kind of get into the cycle of it because the numbers are I don't know if the numbers are so high, but I think sometimes the numbers are so low they think, oh my god, I'm not eating anything. And then that's where it kind of I don't know, does that make sense? Where
Yeah.
you're looking at numbers or a specific amount of food, because one of my friends has mentioned that to me before when numbers was a huge a trigger for her where it was like when she was looking
Paradigm.
at the numbers how small she was eating it made her more hungry if that makes
Oh yeah.
sense.
Or like you're like, oh
Yeah.
my god, I'm eating so low, I have no energy. Meanwhile, you haven't even started your day. That was
It's
me like all the
mentally
time.
it's all mental, I think, as well. Like you
But
look at
then
something, you're
people
like,
see
oh
like
my God.
22, 2,500, they're like, oh my God, that's so much. And you're like, think of like if you eat something else, like a salad from somewhere, it's like already like 700 calories. Who are you
Mm,
kidding me? You know what I mean? So I
yeah.
think, but I mean, it takes a lot of guts to like, for you to go like into eating, just because, like you
Mm,
said, also like on the other end can be kind of scary because if you're not waiting, you're like, okay, am I eating too much or like for me I know like if I don't wait like peanut butter I'm probably gonna overeat on like anything I put, you know what I mean, or just
yeah.
like so it's like you do still need to have an understanding of like portion and food and like
Yeah.
control.
But that's
um
it. You're in a good place now to be able to do that and like still like trust yourself with it and be like,
yeah,
right, I know I'm in a good place now where I feel like I'm satisfied with my meals that I have, plans that I have going on. Like I saw the other day when you had that huge donut on Instagram, I was like, oh my God, that looks so good. But you're like you said, you can still control like having that. And like obviously you didn't have the whole thing, but like you can have that, enjoy it, not stress about it the next day, continue on
yeah,
with your day. Like, and that's because I guess you've kind of gone through that point where you have gone through the
Yeah.
binging cycle. You know what you've been like beforehand, and the kind of the do's, the don'ts, and what you've experienced before, and what you don't want to happen again. Which,
Trust me, I could have kept eating. It was so good, but then I was like, okay, no, I already add more than I thought I would because it was actually really good. So I was like, okay, let me have a couple more bites. And then I was like, I would have like had try other stuff at the fair. Like there was like fried pickle Oreos I wanted to try, and then I was like, oh, fried pickle, like it's a bit over the top. I'm like, no, I
yeah,
want to like, and then I'm just like trying to reconnect myself all the time when I want more things. I just try to reconnect myself with like myself and be like, I feel good right now. I want to feel good tomorrow, so let's just keep it at that. And then I'm able, and then
I love
I
that.
actually had like chicken because I was like, I'm a bit I was hungry and I didn't have food from like five, like protein to five to like 11 maybe. So I was like, well, I could go to bed or I could have like an actual meal, chicken and like a
Hmm.
bit of carbs and go to bed. And like, at least I'm like at peace. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's really good that you mentioned that, because I think checking yourself, especially when you're in that cycle of like potentially wanting to go into a binge, that's
Mhm.
something that really is important, because I think people have gone through there before where it's just been uncontrollable and you just go. Like I've even been like that before, where you just continue to eat and eat and eat, and there's just no stopping, and you just keep going. And
Yeah.
there's no thought process but past it until you finish, and then you're like, oh shit, I've gone too
Yeah.
far.
What did
But
I
I
do?
think that's really good that you've actually like checked yourself and been like, okay, this is what I'm feeling right now. I could keep eating, but I don't need it. Like, do I need to have more? I'm satisfied from this. I already know how it tastes. Like,
Think it's
let's
worth
leave it
it.
at that. And I love that you also then said, okay, I'm still hungry. So you didn't ignore that, because again, you could have ignored it and said, oh, I had a donut, so I should go to bed hungry. No, I'm not going to go to bed hungry because I should eat, because I'm hungry. I'm listening to my body. Like, I
Because
think that's
it's
really
so
good as
good.
well, because again, so many people would have like just been like, oh, I had that donut. I'm hungry still, but I'm going to go to bed hungry. That can then continue on to tomorrow, where you're just going to be extra hungry. And then most likely it's that cycle, and people don't
Yeah.
realize it until they're out of it or like doing it. And then you're like, oh shit, that sucks.
And the
So,
worst, the hardest for me, like, and like for probably a lot of people, it's like you're good for a week, you have the perfect week, like you don't have any craving because you're on plan, you feel so good. But the second you have a cheat, then if I have a cheat on a Saturday and then on a Sunday I have a day off because I take my Sunday for myself, and then I'm like bored. What I want to do, I'm craving because I had sugar yesterday, I had food, so I want food again, so I'm having it again. So I'm now like stacking on top. So
mhm.
like couple like since I stopped like competing now, like couple like weekend, like I can like ate like 2 days in a row, and it's like you make more damage, like obviously like stacking it up. And like when I say like on the Sunday, I'm not just having like 6 roll of sushi. I'm like I'm just snacking on like stupid things that like adds up really quick. So this past weekend on Saturday, I was like I kept my diet like perfect, and then on the Sunday what I do though, like what it's been nice too with like not competing, it's like if I want to wake up on a Sunday later and I want to eat my first meal at 2 or like 1 and give myself a bit more time to like fast or like
Mhm.
give my digestion a break, I can. Which is nice. You can like chill a bit and not being like every time I need to be like, okay, I need to eat first thing in the morning or like after my cardio. It's like no, like if I want to eat just like at 2 and like start my day there, it's fine. But then I got like
Mhm.
I was just bored and I was like I went to like the grocery store. I was like, okay, I'll make a homemade burger just to make something. But then I ended up like I kind of like pushed it too late. It was like 8 when I started like so I like in between I was just like kind of like snacking on like extra stuff and then like you know what I mean. So like so I woke up on the Monday. I felt fine though, but like my weight went up a lot because I went to bed late and I think I woke up at like 4 a.m. and I had like another snack. Like I said, it's like I still do like some stupid things. I'm not perfect
Yeah.
like right away, but like so obviously my weight wouldn't be like really down the next
Mhm.
day. But like instead of like letting it like let oh my god letting it affect me and like put me down, be like, what did I do? I fucked it up, blah blah. I'm like, okay, no, like acknowledge it and like give you some grace. And I'm like, okay, no, I've done worse. Like couple weekend ago, like I've done it like 2 days in a row. Listen, I've just had some food there. It's fine. Your weight's gonna go back down. Just go back on your diet. And it just allowed me to like move on with my week. And like this
Mhm.
morning I'm pretty much back to like my weight.
Yeah.
So and I'm like we're like midweek. So it's like I think removing also like that pressure on yourself, or like, oh, I fucked up, or like, oh, what did I do? It's like, no, like, okay, like that happened, it's fine, it wasn't a big deal. At least I didn't do, I could have done worse. Like, I mean, I'm not
Mhm.
saying that like being always like, oh, I could have done worse.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I acknowledge that, like, okay, no, I actually like been able to just do it like one night and then move on from it, and not extending it on the Monday. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think
So
that the word that came into my head when you were kind of saying that is like sometimes people think of it as like a punishment in a way. So they're like they punish themselves. They're like, "Oh, I fucked up. Like you really shouldn't have done that." So that's where that kind of like that mindset comes from of like, "Okay, let's restrict now." You know?
yeah.
And I love that you kind
Or
of
just go be like, oh, I fucked up, like, well, whatever. So it's like, I think like the more you're like, you're
yeah.
like, from like a positive reinforcement and just being like, okay, it's fine, move on. Then instead of like being like negative, you're most likely to be like, okay, I'm good, I can
Yeah.
get
Carry
back.
on
You know
with
what
my day. Yeah. And it's like if you catch yourself, I think like advice I would say from what I've kind of heard from that, and I think you probably agree in terms of like how you can kind of stop it. Cause that's one question I think a lot of people have always asked me is like, how do you deal with post show, like food and eating and all that type of thing? My thing is like finding good, like you said, finding good habits for yourself. So, and not being so hard on yourself because you are going to fuck up at some point. Like no one's perfect. And the thing is, it's not even a fuck up at this point because you are supposed to be eating more food post show anyway. But don't be so hard on yourself and kind of almost like punish yourself because that's where the cycle starts, I think. But I think if you do then start to continuously see yourself like over and over again doing the same things, then kind of, okay, let's rethink. What can we do? What is it? Where's the habits or the bad habits coming into that's making you want to overeat on your food? Like try and find the root of the cause versus just trying to either ignore it or like try and get back down to a certain
Oh
weight
yeah,
or something like that. I think that's super important. But no, I
I
love
don't.
that. I love that you were like, right, check yourself. Like, don't like put so much pressure on yourself to be perfect because it's hard. Post show is probably harder than actual prep
Yeah,
itself.
yeah.
I think a lot
Like
of people
for
that
sure,
get
even like lifestyle that you don't really have like anything, not a goal to work. So even if you have a coach, sometimes you're just like, well, it's not gonna hurt anything, right? But
hmm
like, I love when you say like, oh, like, um, you just said like, oh my god, I have like literally a blank of like what you just said. It was so good.
what the punishment thing.
Oh man,
You're
it's
like, I'm tired. Today's been a day already.
not bad. It's just two for me, but um,
It's okay. But
yeah, like
no,
just
I
like trying to like stop yourself, and like I've been to like places that like you just want to like keep like eating and eating, and I think it's just like, I don't know, like putting yourself in a place that like, yeah, just I don't know.
yeah, putting your
Stop it.
is you're like my brain's shutting off now. No, but I think what you meant was like putting yourself in a place of like punishment and like almost like we said, like you said before, resentment in a way, resentment for all the habits that you're doing and like being so hard on yourself and stuff like that. I think if you realize the root of the cause of what's actually
Oh, that's what
happening,
you said.
oh, the root of the
Exactly.
cause. Okay,
Yeah, I
cool,
think
that's
like
it.
a lot of time we just like hard on ourselves, being like, I fucked up. I need to be perfect next time. I need to be better. It's like, yeah, you can take it like, because I've thought like that all the time. Like why did I fuck up? Why did I need to be better? I need to be, I'm an athlete. What are you doing? But it's like instead of doing that, it's like, no, like it doesn't mean you're like you can't follow a diet and you're a bad athlete, or you're like not like a good competitor, or like because you see those other, maybe you just, there's something you need to like understand why you're doing that. Like a lot of time, if there's a problem, you need to find the cause. But a lot of time with diet, we're just like, oh, I don't know why I can't fucking stick to a diet. I need to be better. I need to like, and then you're just like trying to like bring yourself to a place that like, no, you need to understand why though you're doing that from the beginning.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
like for me, I got like, I went back to a place of like, okay, like everything that I've done in the past, I cannot repeat because it never will work for me.
yeah,
I need to change something. So that's why now it's like, okay, I'm not going back into that cycle of like changing my diet and stuff, and just trust that your body is gonna regulate. And like I need to get to a place that like my body wants to eat more and like stay in good condition. So just
yeah.
don't repeat things that didn't work before.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's completely the whole I would say how that's going to help you in your journey in terms of being post show, or if you're in a binging cycle yourself or anything like that. I think finding the root cause, finding what works for you.
Mm.
Don't listen. It's not a case of don't listen to anyone else or think, oh, you need to do this. Find generally what actually works for you, because I do feel like sometimes where people have just been like, oh, just get back on plan. It's really not that simple. Sometimes it's not a case of being on plan. It's a case of, okay, let's try and strategically plan out this plan to fit me, so I don't actually feel like I want to binge or crave things or
Yeah,
anything like that. I think that's super important. And communication, be honest with your coach. Like, if you
yeah,
fucked up, don't think that they're gonna chop your head off and be like, oh my God, worst athlete in the world, I'm
we're
spamming, I'm
human.
gonna expose you or spam you or whatever. I think being honest and open with your coach is the first step, and just literally being like open, because that's how they're gonna then help you get to where you want to be. Because I think sometimes it's also like ashamed at first, where
Yeah,
you feel ashamed to say it and you're like disappointment, but they're there for a reason. They're not that just there for your victories. They're there for like your downfalls or your low times or whatever, to help you rise again and all that type of stuff. So
if you
yeah,
have a good coach that like wants the best for you, they're not gonna judge. They're gonna like help you. And like if they don't, if they judge you or like make you feel bad, well, maybe you should switch coach, like in
yeah,
my opinion. But like
yeah.
yeah, it's hard because you do feel ashamed. But like at the end of the day, we're all human, and like that's
Hmm.
kind of like one thing to like remember sometimes. Like as an athlete, it's hard, but like you can't also like stop looking around you and be like, oh well, those people are doing well. Well, maybe they're in their best place in their life. Maybe they have a partner very supportive, so it's easy for them to stay on track. Maybe like you know what I mean.
There's
Like
so many
situations
factors.
different. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
tough.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That was really cool to kind of like obviously go through that whole journey, because again, I've never fully spoken to you about that kind of journey. So I think it will be very valuable for a lot of people to listen to that as well. Because I do feel like it's something that's, yes, talked about, but it's always in a case of like, in a negative way. I think sometimes binge eating can obviously I understand why it's been perceived as a negative thing, but I think also we should bring it to light and not be so negative about it, and obviously help people and encourage people, just one, talk about it, and two, just know how to get past it. So, but
Yeah.
yeah. So, and
No,
then the final question that I wanted to kind of ask you in terms of your journey moving forwards before we finish this amazing podcast, which I honestly love talking to you. This has been so fun.
I know it's
Um,
just so long.
I know we've just chatted for ages. Is
No, I mean
does
it's been so long we've talked to each other. So
I know this is like a little catch up. I love it. So does upsizing? Okay, how I don't want to try and put it correctly. Is upsizing for the category you were in beforehand the reason you potentially stopped competing? Because, and I feel a lot of people will relate to this, because I think with the categories, obviously, they're not, I wouldn't say they're getting bigger every single year, but they are developing and changing, not each year, but obviously as the years have gone on from 2017 to now, right? Um, do you feel like that's one of the reasons as to why you probably stopped competing, because you felt like you didn't want to be that size in everyday life, or you didn't want to push for that size for figure?
I think it's a little bit of like all of the above. I don't think it was like just the main thing. I think it was what actually made me pull the trigger. At the end, I think there was like I said a bit like before, like there was more things to that. There was just like me obviously then not my heart wasn't fully in it anymore, just in a way that I think I just needed to like take a step back, enjoy my life a little bit, like travel, like try to focus on other thing, and like relationship even with my parents, like but I think also like one of the big thing was like seeing figure like where like it's getting, and like I mean again I have a lot of like admiration for it, but at the end of the day figure is supposed to be feminine and like not that
Mm-hmm.
muscular and like not that conditioned.
Mm-hmm.
And if I've had people telling me like, well, like at the Olympiad, they're not like that big. Like if you look at the top five and like Sydney Gillen, and I agree with that. At the same time, you see like Jessica, she's at the top five in the Olympiad all the time, and she's getting really big too. And like the thing
Mm-hmm.
is like, as much as like at the Olympia, maybe like the top five because they're looking at like Sydney and like who looks like her are not that big. It's like, well, if you go to pro show though, but then the girls are so big at pro shows and big girls win, how do you get to the Olympia if you need to like win a pro show with like girls who are like so big? So when I did New York, the top two were like woman's physique, like this triceps, glutes, like it was just crazy. Like so for
Mm.
me, it's like, and I'm not saying like, yeah, I would have like even without them being so big, I do know I need to like get more like muscle density. Like I'm not where I should be like as a figure. I think so. Um, but at the same time, like health wise, fitting wise, I don't want to push myself there. And then
Yeah.
I think it's like we forget a lot of time of like when we're like prepping and like competing, you're in prep, you look crazy, you're big, you're like jacked. But then we forget that there's actually life around it. You know what I mean? Outside of that. So like now I was just thinking of like when I was like up for like 5 weeks and I was still like very lean and would go out for like dinner with my friend. I think the more like I'm like taking a step back, I don't know. I always just seen myself like a bit of like a tomboy and stuff, like just the way I dress, like oversized tee. I mean, I know it's a style too, but then I'm like realizing like I love to dress up. I've never been
Yeah.
confident enough. I love to like dress up, being a bit more sexy and like just like it feels good, right? So like I started like going out and I'm like, imagine I would be like so big. Then like
Mm.
you just dress up normally for like going for dinner and like when you're like not prepping,
Yeah.
and then it's like your shoulder is bigger than your head.
Yeah.
It's like it just like people already look at me like, oh, because you don't see that often. Now it's like I don't want to. I don't know. It
Add
just
on
for
to
me,
that.
yeah. Like I just don't want to get there because it's like yeah, it's impressive when you're competing, but there's also around it, and then health wise, it's like another reason, right? It's like
Whole different thing. So I think it's really important to kind of like understand that as well, because I think especially after like, is it been North Americans that's just been, or nationals? I think it was North
yeah,
Americans that's just been.
yeah,
Obviously people get their pro cards, and I think not everyone, but I think a lot of people then now going into the pro league are like, okay, cool, now I've got to put on a lot of muscle, or grow into being professional, like
yeah,
competitive in a pro show, right? And I think what they don't realize is, like you said before, is like the life around it and how you actually want to look every day, not just on stage. That's
yeah,
one thing that I always think about, as well as stage. Don't get me wrong, they both have to align. If it's
yeah,
something that I don't feel comfortable with, and I'm like, I just don't, like, don't get me wrong, obviously I know I have to put on body fat and get bigger and all that type of thing to put on muscle. But if it's really something that is really making me really, really, really uncomfortable, that it's also like making me so uncomfortable that the goal doesn't kind of seem important anymore,
yeah,
then it shouldn't override that, personally, I think. And I know a lot of people might disagree, because obviously you have to be uncomfortable to get comfortable, but at the same time, your own sanity, mental health, and what you feel comfortable doing also matters as well, which I think a lot of people, especially in the bodybuilding world, put aside.
yeah,
So I think that's really important from going amateur to pro, is realizing, one, how much muscle you have to most of the time put on to be competitive, but then also, do you want to do that? You have to understand, like, is that something you want to do and what you want to look like in everyday life? If it is, absolutely amazing, no worries. Like, I know so many girls that are like, I want my delts to be absolutely fucking huge. And I'm like, you go, girlfriend. Like, you get those delts absolutely fucking huge. Like, go for it. But someone else's goal isn't that. They don't want to have striations all the time, or have big delts, or have big legs, or whatever. That's also fine. If that's not a goal, then that's okay. But if you want to be a top Olympian or top competitor or whatever, and that's what you got to do, you then got to make a decision. And that's
you
tough.
have to
Like,
be like comfortable with that. And like when you said
yeah,
like, I need to be like you need to be uncomfortable to be comfortable, or I'm like I agree with that, but I think like it's another like whole other level of like comfortable. It's like I don't think it's good to like feel uncomfortable like in the term of like how you love to see your body like, and for me like I love muscle, I love to be muscular, I love like to look crazy, but like
mm,
when I look at girls like figure who look like that and I look at them, it's like I'm on like I've always had immersion even for like woman's physique. But then when I look at them and I'm like, I'm not sure. Like for me to like that I actually love to be like big and like figure like being like kind of like wanting to take a step back, it like it tells a lot. And then in
yeah,
back when I won my pro card, I've been able to like jump on like a pro show literally like 2 months after, not even. no, like yeah, like 2 months after. If I would win my pro card this year, couldn't, or like with the physique now, if you win your pro card, it's like you need to have a
It's
crazy
tough.
physique to like go on the pro show right away and like compete
Mm,
because of like the difference of like size.
yeah.
So like
The
back
gap
then, it's like
between
I could do
pro
that because the girls weren't that big. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the gap between pro and amateur, I think, is definitely I think it's definitely widening. I think obviously I like the width and obviously how big it is, but I know what you mean where you're like it's sometimes almost an impossible thing to get to.
Yeah,
And again, like we said, every lineup is different. Every show is always different. Sometimes they favor different looks. Sometimes
yeah,
they always favor the same look, but the looks that they are presented with are always very different. That's what I mean by that.
yeah,
Um, it depends who shows up. It depends how the girls look. And sometimes it's not something that you want to look like. And that's also absolutely fine to say that because I feel like sometimes people are scared to be like, oh, I don't want to look like that. Like I want to have muscle and I want to get that condition, but I don't want to be that big. And
yeah,
that's okay. Like, so I love that you obviously had that setback and you were like, I don't want that. I don't want to be that big. I don't want to have that look in everyday life. And this is going to be, the end. I say the end for you, but obviously, where I'm at now, I'm going to stop for where I'm at in terms of growing. So,
yeah.
I mean, what are you doing now? And are you just wanting to maintain the muscle that you have, or are you wanting to grow anything at all, or you're just like,
I
I'm
don't
just
know. I
staying.
think yeah, I think the biggest thing though for me, like too, when I was in prep, like still like 5 weeks, I would do like check-ins and I would be like not happy with, like not proud at all. And like I know like in prep you're always like questioning and you're like, am I good enough? But then it's like I got to a point where it's like I've been in prep that like some chicken I would be not happy and some chicken I would be like, okay, yeah, no, I'm very happy. Like I'm like, I love my physique. Now it's like every chicken I would be like, I hate my physique. I'm not good enough. And like for me, it's like, is it worth it to go every day and like be like not happy when like
Yeah,
if you look at me day to day life, I have a very good physique. So for me to
yeah,
like be like not like happy with that and like is it and then to get to like where the girls are now, it would take me a couple of years. So now I'm like, okay, don't want to like spend another like 3 years of my life just like pushing for that when like
and
I could
reaching
just take
it.
a step back and like enjoy, like try other things, and like 3 years I'll be 30, muscle maturity is going to be there. It's like perfect time for me if I want to go back, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But right now I'm just having fun, to be honest. I think a bit like you, I'm just like I'm still trying to put on muscle and train hard. That's what we know. I'm still having like somewhat of like my same split. Haven't trained arms in 2 weeks, but that's okay.
yeah.
But like that's the thing. It's like I'm able to like take a step back, like do other things. Like if on a day I don't want to train, I want to enjoy like going outside a bit. I can. I'm like trying to be more athletic too, like running again. I want to try to go like do some gymnastics again, just for fun. But yeah, so I'm just like, and then I'm just training a bit more legs, like instead of like having 2 back days because I don't like training back. Like I like it, but like it's not my
That's
favorite.
crazy, really.
Yeah, I'm like I like it, but it's not my favorite. Like it's my least favorite. So like
Oh my
instead of
god, that's
having two
crazy.
back days, I don't have to. I just train back
Yeah.
once and I train like twice. So it's kind of like just having fun with it. Still trying to like grow,
Mhm.
obviously train hard, but no pressure. Just kind of like enjoying it. If I can now like try a new movement, I'm trying to like squat again. So yeah,
That's
it's been
good
fun. Like
though.
Thai boxing maybe.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. No, but I love that. I literally did my previous podcast that I literally just did was me talking about just generally the goal is not having a goal. Like it's just
I
literally just
love
like,
that.
do you know what I mean? Not having that chase, not having anything. It's not like I'm being lazy and just sitting on the sofa. I'm not doing anything.
Oh,
I think when people hear, oh, I haven't got a goal, they're like, oh, she's not doing anything. She's being lazy and doing, it's just literally not having that chase of the pressure of having to chase something constantly.
I feel
Just
like it actually
being,
opens like doors for like even more. Like even for me, even
yeah,
like work wise and like content and stuff. Like and you must feel the same. It's like when you're on prep, you're just focused on prep and like just posting things about prep. Now it's like I can post about anything. I can do anything. I can have so many different goals. there's just so many things you can do, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. So I love to hear that you're on that journey, and that's really super exciting. So, oh my god, I've absolutely loved you having being my first guest on today's
But
podcast. Thank you for coming on. If anyone wants to either reach out to you, find you, because I know you have YouTube and your own
yeah.
Instagram, all that type of thing, where can they find you?
Like YouTube, I'm like trying to be very active on it now, and then just like Instagram, like I reply to like pretty much all my DM, trying to like
Nice.
get back to everyone. So like if you guys have like any question or just like need advice or anything, like my main goal is just like to like get back and like helping people get to like where they want to be, either it's like food wise or anything. So
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. Well,
thank you.
Val,
So
thank you
nice.
so much for having me. And I'll put all your details and everything like that in the description box below if anyone wants to follow Val, follow her journey and what she's doing, all that type of thing at the moment. If you guys don't already, please like, subscribe, comment down below. Any guests, any more guests that you want to see, or comment down below what was your favorite part from today's podcast. I think this has been our longest podcast we've ever had
Oh,
on
I
our
can talk forever.
podcast.
I seem like a shy person. I love talking.
An hour and a half. I'm like, wow, that's a record. So yeah, it's been really good. Comment down below your favorite part. We love you guys so much, and we will see you in the next one.